fantasy winners. And for this NFL video, I want to discuss actually something that I did my first video on in week one, which were on a couple of the rookies in that Giants Cowboys matchup. And, Sterling Shepard was somebody I recommended as far as a rookie who I thought was being a little bit undervalued. And Ezekiel Elliott was someone who I thought was getting a little bit too much hype coming into the season, in particular week one. And so I just wanted to touch on kind of how that game played out and what it sort of means for each team and those players specifically moving forward. So the New York Giants. So actually, let's just take a step back here and actually talk about how this game played out. I did expect, as I said in the video, I thought the Giants were going to win the game. I thought it would be fairly high scoring and would play at least around where the over-under was, which I believe was like 48 and a half, or maybe actually a little bit lower, like 46, 47. It was in the upper 40s. I forget what the exact closing number was, but it obviously finished out a little bit lower than that. But having said that, it still didn't play that. I mean, the total points was a little bit lower than I expected. But having said that, in terms of the way the offenses worked, it wasn't that surprising. Having said that, I do think that the Cowboys actually had the ball a lot more than I had expected. And so we'll take a look at the stats here. And you might take a look at this and say, the Giants, okay, Cowboys' yardage was about the same. The Cowboys obviously had the ball much longer, 36-43 to 23-17. Cowboys were +1 in turnovers, okay, nothing too big there. And you might say, okay, so this game was pretty even. The Giants just found a way to win. I would actually, I mean, there is a little bit of truth to that, but at the same time, I would take a look at the yards per play here and see the Giants averaged 5.9 yards per play, and the Cowboys averaged 4.4. And obviously, since the Cowboys had the ball longer, the Giants are going to have fewer plays. But to get to the total yardage being about the same, that's why the Giants had to average more yards per play. So to basically go into this, I thought that the Cowboys defense, or the Cowboys offense would have a few more 3-and-outs with Dak Prescott being quarterback as opposed to Tony Romo. Dak Prescott was actually very good on third down. I was pretty impressed with him. If you see here on third down efficiency, 10 of 17. Cowboys actually had a lot of fairly lengthy sustained drives throughout this game, but they just could not do anything in the red zone. And there are basically two reasons why this was happening. Number one, the Cowboys could not really run the ball pretty much the entire game. They did rush for 101 yards, but I do believe they had a lot of attempts. They had 30 rushing attempts. They only averaged 3.4 yards per rush, as you can see, which obviously is not that good. And so that did play out pretty much kind of how I expected to for Ezekiel Elliott, because Ezekiel only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. He had 20 carries for 51 yards. He did have that one touchdown run in the red zone where I think, so funny, his long was 8 yards, and I actually think that specifically that carry was the touchdown run from 8 yards out, but I might be mistaken on that. But nevertheless, he didn't have any big explosive runs. And if you watch throughout the game, for the most part, the Cowboys' offensive line wasn't as good as some people were expecting, quite frankly, as I was expecting. But the one thing I wasn't surprised about is Ezekiel was also, like I said, this is going to be a bit of a learning curve for him because this is a completely different kind of a scheme. He's so used to playing out of the shotgun in Ohio State and with all the stretch runs and read option that they do, and that's not what Dallas is going to do. So this doesn't really surprise me that Ezekiel struggled in week one. But nevertheless, Zeke got 20 touches, which is pretty good. And actually, if you take a look at the snap count here, I will dive to, actually, you know what, we'll just start with Dallas and then we'll go to the Giants. Pulling up Dallas snap counts here. And in case you're watching this video before you watched the Pittsburgh video I did, this is like a 2016 snap count spreadsheet that I use. And so I'll be using this throughout a lot of the videos that I do here throughout the course of the season. So this will give you guys a good idea of how often guys are on the field, basically, and how often people are being used. So Dallas running backs, if you take a look here, here are your three running backs that played. Ezekiel Elliott got 62% of the offensive snaps. You can see it right here. Lance Dunbar with 22% and Alfred Morris with 18%. So 62% for Zeke in his first game as a rookie. That's pretty good. I mean, it's not great. For a starting running back in the NFL, high volume for running backs in terms of percentage of offensive touches, usually in, around 80. That's, kind of usually roughly the mark. If you get above 80, that's insanely good. But usually 80 is a very high mark. But there aren't a ton of guys that do it. That's like going to be like Lamar Miller, Matt Forte right now is getting, at least we got that in week 1 and Forte for week 2 for that matter, because I'm doing this on the day after the Thursday night game. So, but it's not as bad as some teams will split. Like the Giants actually split about almost nearly 50-50 between Shane Vereen and Rashad Jennings. And then the Saints are still splitting nearly 50-50, despite the fact that they cut CJ Spiller. So in any case, it's not bad for Zeke. That's kind of about. I was expecting maybe actually even a tad higher for him, just because it seemed like there was a lot of hype about him being the main back, but at the same time he's a rookie, so 62% not terribly shocking there. And obviously, like I said, the yards per carry was not very good. And again, I think there's gonna be a little bit of an adjustment period, because think about it, the Cowboys were at home. The Giants' rush defense, it might be okay or it might be like decent, but it's certainly, I don't expect it to be great at all this year. I don't think many people are, and so this is kind of your, like, if you listen to what I said last week in week 1 and you faded him or you limited your exposure or whatever, good job. If you didn't and you went ahead with Zeke anyways, I'm not going to say I told you so. I'm just going to say, well, I'm glad you got the TD. Where at least you saved you from complete disaster. So at least it wasn't too bad for you. But GPPs, obviously, it was not a very good investment. So that's basic. So as far as then how this game played out, where I was surprised at how the Cowboys were able to have the ball so long, is Dak Prescott, like I said, was very good on third downs. Now, how did the Cowboys stay on the field this long for only averaging 4.4 yards per play? Well, basically, Dak was not taking any shots downfield whatsoever. And if you take a look at the Cowboys receiving here on the right-hand side, Jason Witten, 14 targets. Cole Beasley, 12 targets. Everybody else had 4 fewer. Actually, Dez had 5. Only caught 1 ball. And so this is not surprising at all for a rookie quarterback, as week 1. This is it's very common for a first time, whether it's a rookie quarterback or a first time NFL starter or a quarterback that's I hate the term game manager, but like for a guy that's really not trying to command the offense too much and do too many different things, it is very common for those quarterbacks to throw to the tight end a lot, or like slot receivers and just a lot of underneath stuff. And that's basically what Dak did. He very rarely took shots down the field. And that was great that worked pretty well for Dallas throughout this game, actually, to sustain long drives. They just couldn't do anything in the red zone. And the thing is, as far as this goes for Dallas, yeah, Ezekiel will get better over time, so that should help. But at the same time, I don't know how long Dak is going to be able to get away with 10 of 17 on third down without stretching the field. Now, maybe Dak can stretch the field versus, some number 1 defenses here down the line. It is possible. I'm not saying he won't be able to, but I'm skeptical. I'll also say I'm skeptical of it. And I don't think being 10 of 17 on third down and sustaining all those long drives by going to third down there that often is that sustainable. So I'm a little bit skeptical on how good Dallas will be and if they'll be able to stay on the field as long as they were able to do so in this game. And so for Zeke, again, I'm still kind of going to be, they're playing Washington this week in week 2. They're at Washington. I'm still going to recommend holding off on Zeke, limiting your exposure in your GPPs, and if you're only making a few lineups, I would recommend staying away from him. But again, I'm not going to say this just all year. I would just, we'll see how it goes. But again, this is just somewhat I would say wait until the perfect matchup, or wait until you see like some signs at least. You don't have to wait for like the 30-point fantasy point production. You don't have to wait for that, but you just have to wait for the right spot and wait until he gets a few more games under his belt. And so that's my opinion there as far as the Cowboys go and what they were able to do in this game. And now, so from the Giants' perspective, I recommended Sterling Shepard. Let's see here. Oops, I'm going the wrong way here. So this is wide receivers. I recommend Sterling Shepard, and I basically said in the video is he was getting a little bit of attention, but I didn't think nearly close to the attention he deserved. And I believed that he was going to be the clear number 2 receiver in terms of snaps and everything like that. And I pretty much broke down just saying that he could run every route in the book and he could be used in every way, shape, and form and just be a great complement to ODB on the opposite side of him. And so from a snap count percentage, it was exactly what I expected. Odell Beckham, 100% of snaps, of course. Sterling Shepard, 95% of snaps, clear number 2 receiver. Victor Cruz, 89% of snaps, was a clear number 3 receiver, basically more the slot receiver. And I actually can't. I don't know if Cruz and Shepard mixed it up between who was slot and who was exactly opposite outside. But the Giants pretty much are almost always in 3 wide receiver sets, and those 3 receivers were going to be on the field. So one way or the other, it's how I thought it was going to go down there. The one thing I was not factoring in, though, is, and I kind of feel a little bit embarrassed about this, only in the fact that the last couple of years I felt like a lot of people were forgetting about Victor Cruz, and just he was banged up and he was injured, obviously, but clearly the injuries, they just kept happening for him, and he couldn't get healthy, and obviously he was missing time. I mean, he was out most of the time. Like, don't get me wrong, but I was kind of waiting for Cruz to get back and ready to be healthy and be strong, but it was happening enough that I was just kind of like, I'm just going to take a wait and see approach, and I just didn't know how realistic this was of how good Cruz was going to be here in week 1. And Cruz looked very good. I mean, he didn't have like he had that touchdown obviously, and but as far as it's just watching him the entire game, he looked healthy, and I mean, good for Victor Cruz. I mean, I hate it when people make fun of people for, just that suffer multiple injuries, and like, somebody gets hurt and they just say, oh, shocker, like, RG3, like, I don't get. I mean, it's really unfortunate for him. I'm all for making fun of people in certain situations when they like drop passes or whatever, but just the injury thing, that's just I'm not a fan of that. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm good for Victor Cruz. Really glad to see he's back, and hopefully you can see a resurgence from him. However, though, bring this back to the Shepard standpoint, and just the Giants wide receiver perspective. Very, very even distribution here for the Giants receivers. ODB had 8 targets, led the team, but 4 receptions for ODB, 4 receptions for Victor Cruz, 3 for Sterling Shepard, had the touchdown, had a very nice touchdown there actually. Rashad Jennings, Shane Vereen a little bit involved in the PPR standpoint, as were the tight ends and Larry Donnell, and Will Tye. So very even distribution from Eli. Now, it's 1 week. We shouldn't react too much to the even distribution in 1 game of sample size, or for a 1 game sample. And the other thing is they only had the ball for 23 minutes here, the Giants. So it's not like Eli was throwing. It's not like, Eli threw the ball probably 28 times. I was going to say 30. Okay, so he only threw the ball 28 times. So it's not like Eli had a lot of time to throw the ball, or had much time on the field to be throwing the ball a bunch like he's accustomed to. And we will definitely see Eli do that in week 2 against the Saints. I can pretty much promise you that one. So you can expect that there. But as far as because I'm bringing this back to Shepard and why I recommended week 1, I thought ODB and Sterling Shepard were going to be kind of like clear 1, clear number 2. It's still very much possible. And the snap count percentages say Shepard's going to be on the field a lot, and Shepard definitely still has outstanding upside as a GPP option. But what I was not factoring in was Victor Cruz really looking as good as he did in week 1, despite not having like an insane game. So again, week 1 sample, don't want to take too much into it, but it does make me pump the brakes just a tiny bit on Shepard for how much I like recommending him moving forward. But again, I still like him more in GPPs, just not maybe as much maybe in cash situations, maybe a little bit of a lower floor here until we get a few more weeks of information. So, but actually, the Giants overall, like, they couldn't get off the field on 3rd down as far as defense goes on the Giants. But even though they only scored 20 points, they were actually like they were respectable. They were decent on offense. 316 yards for only being on the field for a little over 23 minutes. That's not bad. 50% on 3rd down. Okay, fine. Like, they did the 1 turnover, and so. Nothing like outstanding from the Giants, but at the end of the day, for how long they were on the field and the fact their defense couldn't get off the field on 3rd down, that's not that bad. They're playing again, like they're playing the Saints week 2. That is going to be a shootout, and it wouldn't actually surprise me to see the Giants blow out the Saints. Quite frankly, I think their defense is just atrocious. It just is. It's just that simple. But we'll see about that. And obviously, I think you can definitely play Eli in all formats week 2. Might be my top quarterback choice if I had to say right this second. ODB, Sterling Shepard, all get reasonable GPP options, and quite frankly, Victor Cruz probably is too a little bit. But I probably like Shepard the most still a little bit in that area. But that's kind of where I'm at with the Giants right now. So I just kind of wanted to reflect on the week 1 analysis that I did, and then just kind of give you a little bit of my general thoughts here moving forward to week 2. So, and throughout the rest of the year. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. As usual, YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe if you like the stuff. And you can follow Daily Fantasy Winners at DFantasyWinners on Twitter, or me on Twitter at Nick Yuskevich. All right, thanks, guys.